517 to scanner control. 517 to scanner control.
This is the Star Wars Squadrons podcast, season 2, episode 11. And this is the episode I wanted to do, like I said to him, just as we're getting going there. He is exactly the kind of person I wanted to have on the podcast when I started it. He was, early in the game, right out of the gate. He's a pillar of the community, one of the main streamers, went hard all year until he decided to switch off of Squadrons. But I made it a point to seek him out and finally have him on the podcast. Avenger One, buddy, I am so glad to bring you on the podcast today. Thank you for being here.
I'm happy to be here. That's quite the intro.
You like that intro, dude?
I think you give me a little too much credit.
No, man. When I think about it, I remember like right away, Namaste, of course. I think Scalp maybe too, and then I feel like a little bit later you got onto it. You were streaming this game really hard off the gate. What was your background before Squadrons? How did you hear about Squadrons? What were you playing? What was your history with Star Wars games before Squadrons came out?
Before Squadrons, I was playing. Oh boy. Let me take you back here for a second.
Sure.
So I started with EVE Online, and then I started an organization called the Bombers Bar. I led that for a few years. And there's some history there in EVE Online for the Bombers Bar guys, which I still talk to this day. There's such a great crew of people. I think the Discord's now grown to like 6,000 members.
In the Bombers Bar.
Yep.
I think I was on that one briefly, actually, the Bombers Bar. I don't think I quite got that's what it was. I think somehow I ended up over there. That's so cool.
It's like, my personal Discord was the Bombers Bar Squadron Command, which was a different Discord.
Okay,
right?
maybe that's where my mix-up was. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, because like I started Bombers Bar in like 2009, maybe, or maybe a little later, but that was back in the days of TeamSpeak, like before Discord was a thing, and we all grouped up with in-game chat. There was a channel in the in-game in EVE Online, and that channel was called Bombers Bar, and people would come to that channel specifically to get together to fly stealth ships to kill people. And the idea behind it was, it doesn't matter what you do or where you come from. In the next 3 hours, we're all going to get together and we're all going to just shoot everything that's not us. And it was like EVE Online in quick match mode. And it took off. People loved it. People liked the idea of it because it was simple. It worked. People always complain. They said, it'll never work. You'll just get spied on. And don't get me wrong. I mean, obviously that's a problem, but I mean, that's a problem for normal fleets anyway. So the way it worked was, if you have good leadership and a positive attitude, you get a lot of people. Most people will go along with what you're doing, and it's a lot of fun, right? So we had an absolute blast. We got featured in the game's official trailer, which was a big honor, because we had a big impact on the game, and we had a lot of fun. And the guys still to this day are out there, wrecking stuff and having a good time. So that's where I started, right? And that's kind of what got me in the door when it comes to like space games and all that stuff.
So that was your first kind of like a different side of it, but that's the first sort of like space flight game you went into, right? And it's funny, you had the PvP was like the side of it you were interested right there too, player killing.
Yeah, that's all I cared about. I forced myself to do the other stuff only because it made money so that I could do PvP.
Of course, so you could have the better ships to do better PK.
So it was all about knocking sandcastles down and having fun, right? You call it Schadenfreude or whatever, but I got enjoyment out of getting into battles and winning. It was a challenge. It was a challenge to win. It was a challenge to beat your opponent. And it felt good to win. So to me, it was just, that was my little dopamine cycle that I just stuck myself into for a couple of years. But it taught me a lot about people. It taught me a lot about situations. It taught me a lot about leadership. And it let me grow as a person. My communication skills, I feel like, got better as the years went on. You make mistakes.
Did you stream any of that game? When did you start getting into content creation?
That's a good question. I'm not sure how deep and personal you want to get with this, but in my opinion, it's like let's go as deep as we can, right?
Sure,
So I
yeah, let's
never
get it.
streamed because I was too afraid to stream,
Uh-huh.
and I was a bit shy, all those years ago because I was like, oh, what would people think? What would my parents think? Like I'm trying to get my career off the ground. I'm trying to like move out of my basement and like be a man. Yeah, I was young. I was like early 20s, still finishing up college, and it was just wasn't in the cards at the time, right? I was just too self-conscious. And then as time went on, I learned from the lessons of Afghanistan after I came back from the war, and I realized like
Oh.
you only have
I didn't realize you did
few...
you did service there, man. I'm a
Yep.
Canadian. I'm a Canadian too, so I appreciate that,
So
man. Yeah.
I did 12 years in the armed forces. I served in Afghanistan in 2010.
Wow.
And it taught me a lot about life and what's important and what's kind of an illusion, right?
Yeah, of course.
And I made a choice, later on in life, and I thought to myself, like, I can finish up my 20s and never start streaming and always have it as one of those things where I think to myself, like, I could have tried it. I could have done it. I could have made this a thing for me, right? Because what
Yes.
I've realized about myself is, one, I love games. I mean, I've been playing like N64 games. You probably too, since we were young, right?
Right.
Like Super Smash Brothers and all that stuff, right? I mean,
Yes.
it's just part of who I am, right? And it was so important for me to make a choice and say, you know what? Money is great. I have a career. I'm fine. I could, in some sense you could say I've made it. And I wanted to try. I wanted to try the stream thing because I felt like it was me. Because from all the people I've met, from the games I used to play, they all kind of gave me the same vibe. They said, like, man, you're a fun person to be around. You're an absolute blast. Like, this is something that you could do well in, right? And I never totally believed it because I didn't believe it myself, right? You could have a million people pulling for you, but if you don't believe it, it won't happen, right? And so, I had some more life experiences. You fall in love, you fall out of love, you race a car too fast, you don't race a car too fast. Just things in life teach you lessons that are important, and it makes you recalibrate. And I remembered not like the reason why I'm put on this planet, but I remembered like life is precious. You only have so many moments in your life that are worth living, and time is a currency you can't get back. So I decided, you know what? Let's do it. Let's dive in. Let's start streaming. And at the time, I was really big into Star Citizen. I was really getting into the combat. I was putting in a tremendous amount of hours. I had expensive joysticks. I had a crew of people that I really enjoyed flying with and still do, and it was just like, now's the time. So I started way back in the day. Oop, almost pulled my headphone off. This goose for you. And I started streaming Star Citizen in 2000 something. I can't remember. I'd have to go back on my YouTube channel, but that's when I kind of started, right? And then it kind of went from there. And then I took a big break. And I took a big break because I got scared again. And life happens, and cancel culture is a thing. And the career that I had chosen, it's just like, why risk it? You know what I mean? Why risk saying something controversial and then they come after you and the Twitter mobs and stuff? And I got scared, right? I legitimately thought like, this isn't worth it.
I feel very similarly because, like, I've been that way too in my life, because it's like, I don't want to wonder, like, at the end of my life, could I have done something? So I've always tried to go for those things. So I definitively know I cannot do that thing. It's very nice to have that answer, to know that I could fail at them. But for me, the other way that I really like to see it, though, is that it's really cool that you kind of have these phases where you're going in and out of it and you're reevaluating, because I kind of go through the same thing in my life too. Like, I'm 38 now. And I've gamed my whole life, but I mean, there was times in my 20s I went like 5 years where I didn't play, and again in my 30s I went about 5 years in my early 30s where I just didn't play, and then I started gaming again in the last few years because I'm just like the same way. I can really relate to that, because I was like, you know what, when I was young, I wish that gaming was at the point that it is now, right? Like, gaming is like, to the point where it's a career. Where when I was young, this is just unimaginable, right? Like they told me that I couldn't game, and now, or literally, I do. It's like a fun hobby for me and maybe a potential career in the future. That I think is worth exploring. So it's really cool that you say that. I can totally relate. So Star Citizen and all that was kind of a gap there. So what were you doing in between then and then getting back into streaming? What led you back?
I agree with your points. Absolutely,
Mm-hmm.
you're absolutely right. You do fall in and out of things, and I do agree with the sentiment. You don't want to look back in your life and be like, man, I really wish I would have done that, right? Because my biggest fear is regret. It's to not try, and you
Mm-hmm.
gotta risk being the fool for you to get anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of people, I guess they have this weird misconception where it's like, oh, you make money like playing games, like and you don't make really that much money. It's just
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't make a lot of money. It's like chump change, but it's like hobby money, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the point is, I'm doing something that I love, and I would be doing this if I wasn't making money,
Right.
right? And a lot of people don't realize that. It's like, for me, this isn't a thing where it's like I look at this like I get a part-time job and I like, put the hours in I need to and go. No, like, this is what I do all day every day because I love it. This is who I am. I talk about games. I talk about the games I love. I'm
Mm-hmm.
very passionate about the games I love. I love space. I love all that stuff. I love it all wrapped up into a little dogfighting game that makes me have an effect on people's lives in a positive way. I like it when people laugh and have a good time with me. I
Mm-hmm.
really do. And that's been the source of some of my greatest strengths, but also some of the weaknesses too, because I think sometimes, especially when it comes to like texting and that kind of stuff, it gets lost in translation. Things get, twisted, and it's unfortunate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And nobody's perfect, right? But that's just life. Anyway, so now you're all caught up as to when I started, where I came from, why I stream, all that stuff, right?
But now I'm
And then,
wondering
yeah,
how. So then you hear about Star Wars Squadrons. How did you hear about it? Let me know about that when it was coming out.
well, I was mid playing Star Citizen. I was getting a little frustrated, so I took a little bit of break there. I stopped streaming because, again, I was a little bit afraid of the cancel culture stuff, and I was just focusing on other life avenues, relationships, career, that kind of stuff. So I was playing Daisy. I was playing Battlefield. I was just kind of playing whatever I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
Witcher, um, games that I enjoy, but I wasn't streaming anymore, and I was just doing it, um, as a hobby, like I always do. But it kind of kept burning at me. I was just like, man, like, I really wish there was a game out there like X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, And then my buddy texted me. He goes, hey. I'm like, what's going on, man? I haven't seen you in a while. He's like, have you heard of this game called Maverick? And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, there's this new Star Wars game. It's called Operation Maverick. And I'm like, well, send me a link. Like, what are you talking about here? And it was like some leaked article saying like, ooh, there's an EA company working on a Star Wars game that's going to be based on, flying spaceships in the cockpit, very reminiscent of, X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, right? And as soon as I heard about that, I got excited. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I was like, here we go, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so eventually, as time went on, it finally does come out that it's Squadrons, right? And I just you know, um, not to get too specific, but I had an experience that really changed it, like a life altering experience that changed my perspective on life.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized very quickly that um, there's no better time than now.
I mean,
And
pandemic too, right? Like I think we're all kind of
right,
reevaluating. So I
absolutely.
mean, even without a major life altering, which is so hard.
Yeah.
Everyone to go through that,
Mhm.
and then also it's just a life altering in that sense too. So I can imagine just feel like, yeah, you got to seize that moment. So Squadrons came out.
That's right, mom spaghetti. You know what I mean, like Eminem. But it's this happened a little bit before the pandemic, but
Hmm.
it really changed my view of stuff. And the
Yeah.
day that not Star Citizen, the day that Squadrons released was the first day that I started streaming
Oh.
professionally, and in my opinion, it's the first day of the rest of my life. And
Oh.
I'll be more specific, right? I do not plan on giving up streaming.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's a part of my life.
Yeah.
It's a part of my lifestyle. I'm going to stream until I'm 80 years old in the old folks home. To me, I'm serious. Like I'm 100% serious in that. I want to get into VR stuff, and it's slowly making its way, and I'm doing the things that I love. I come home, I work out, I care for the people that love me. I love them, and then I play games. I play games with people, and to me, that's the most enjoyable thing is spending time with people. I have trouble now playing deeply single player games unless they're games like The Witcher that are just so unbelievably good. It's just hard to pull away. But even then, you play for 50 hours and you're done.
I felt the same way for so long, like, because I guess even then I've like always enjoyed 1v1 games. Like I grew up playing like sports games, NHL, Madden as well. But that had a certain play with your friends sort of vibe to it growing up, and then now online you kind of play with those people too. So I totally relate to that. It is all about, it's not just about single player games, and it has to be a very special single player game to make me play it. Like I haven't even played the Squadrons story mode, and that's like my favorite game of the last decade, right? Like,
yeah. Well, you're absolutely right. That's what it's all about, right? It's about the people and all that stuff, right? So, in my opinion, and so take it for what it's worth, I believe that games will save the world, and I'll hear me out.
Oh, that's a bullet. All right, I do want to hear this. Let's go.
When I'm playing Star Wars Squadrons, right, and I'm with my team, and oh my god, my cat is trying to kill me again. And I'm trying to win a fight. I'm trying to play with my team. I don't care where you come from. I don't care what your skin color is. I don't care where you grew up. I care about, can you get the job done? Are you going to play as a team member? Like, to me, there's none of that crap.
Yeah.
There's none of that BS. It's just everyone's on the same playing field. You know what I mean? To me, when it comes to gaming, we're all there to have a good time. And if we're competitive about it, we're all there to compete. And, to me, that's one of the best things about gaming. I mean, you can see it a lot of times with us younger people. We're all tied up in our socials and in our games and stuff, but I feel like gaming is one of those places where people go because it doesn't care about what politics you have. It just cares about you having a good time.
Yeah, I mean, it's so cool playing Squadron specifically because it's such a small game, but it's so worldwide. Like, imagine if this game wasn't cross-console, or like, imagine PC players couldn't play with console players. This game would be so much smaller and harder, but it's like, because there's all these platforms available, and it is a small game, though. I play most of the people I play with live in the South Pacific. I play with Australians regularly, Europeans, a lot of people in the South Pacific. Like, it's crazy, like, how diverse the people that you play with are in this game, and how it's brought so many different people together. Like, even, I'm trying to think, early on, you were playing with, like, Namaste, who was, like, another one of the big streamers. He would have been, like, European. The same thing for you. You're connecting people, like, from all over the world, right? Like,
well, gaming is a global community.
Yeah.
I mean, I play with people in Japan. I play with people in Germany, all that stuff, and that's, again, one of the reasons I'm talking about, like, yes, politics sometimes get their way into games. It's unfortunate, but it does happen. But mostly in general, gaming is like, it's the place where it's just meant to be exciting for everybody. It's a truly accessible medium. And I think that's really exciting because it brings people together. Like, when you go and put a VR headset on, because this will be a thing in our generation as VR gets better, more and more people will start shipping into it. And you put a headset on, you become an avatar. Your avatar is going to be whatever the hell you want it to be. Like, I hate to bring up the Matrix, but your digital self will be whatever you want it to be. So you're judging now people based on their integrity, like of who they are, not how they identify, because you can be whatever you want to be in this digital space. And I think that is it's a very, how do I say it? It's a very enlightened view of humanity in gaming, because nobody really cares. It just cares about what's going on in that world.
Yeah, it is. It does have that sort of power. I mean, I feel like there's still sort of like an element of just people kind of being like bullies sometimes, like online, even to like little kids or something like that. I remember watching like a clip of it. So it's like the idea of that this little kid could then be an adult to like kind of balance the playing field, sort of, so to speak, and make it not, you know what I mean? They could change their voice. They could change everything then. They appear completely different. So it is an interesting element there.
Mm-hmm. But we went real deep down the rabbit hole.
Damn, we
there,
did.
So let's
You
get back
brought
on track.
it.
with Squadrons more specifically. So
So the thing that I was talking about Squadrons was like early on in the game, it was when you were starting out playing, it was much more of a PvP focused game as well. So that must have been the draw for you when you started playing, right? Like even before the Defender came out, which is interesting too, because I don't think right away people liked the Defender at first before they realized. Why don't you talk about the early game of Squadrons there?
I hated the Defender in the first 12 hours. I hated it. I was like, this is the worst thing since sliced cheese. Like, it's just like rotten sliced cheese. Maybe that's a bad analogy, but it's just, I hated it. I wanted to text Ian and be like, Ian, why? Why would you do this to me?
Were you a fan? Were you a fan of the lore of the Defender? Like, knowing...
absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
There's no doubt about it. Like, you got to separate the performance of the vehicle / the ship to the actual lore. I mean, I absolutely adore the lore on the TIE Defender, but at the time when I first started flying it, I thought this is ridiculous. But like everything in life, the more you get into it, the more you dive into it, the more deeply you understand something, the more you realize its potential, right? And since Squadrons has a skill ceiling that's quite high, I convinced myself, like, Kate, just shut up, Avenger, just keep flying it, because there's obviously something here that you're missing, right? So I kept flying. And for about 40 hours, I just poured into the ship in training mode with my buddies, just constantly grinding matches until I realized, like, oh, this is how you fly this thing, right? Now, unfortunately, and this is the truth, unfortunately, the success of the ship is based around a flaw in the game's logic. And that is one of the big reasons why I decided to walk away. But at the time, when most of us didn't really know how to utilize that to the maximum extent, the game had there was a moment that was perfect. It was like it was just on that point where we were all skilled enough to really be edging it, but also we weren't knowledgeable enough in the ways to exploit the game that it became a different game.
There's just so much. Yeah, I agree. Like the defense, I mean, that was the ship that they nerfed a whole bunch. They nerfed dead drifting. They changed it a whole, like there was a point where, I don't know. It's so hard to say with the Defender and how that, you hit it on the nail on the head to me, because you're talking about the knowledge, the skill, and the player base all being at this perfect, like the Venn diagram was perfect at a certain point where there was like and it was so hard to keep that though. Yeah, it's like to keep those, it's like juggling 3 balls in the air, and because now it's like the other, it's interesting now compared to that, because everyone kind of has the maximum evasion, so then it's kind of like come down to like focused fire, like so it's like now PvP's kind of coming back because the evasion hit the ceiling, so now people's PvP skills are slowly raising. So there's like, but there's minimal, so there's not variation for the PvP. Like for instance, you have to fly, you got X-Wings, Y-Wings, support ships, right? You can't use B-Wings or A-Wings, so the variety in ships is limited because you have to, such a limited pool of what you can use to get player kills. And now, this isn't all teams, right? Like Splinter just lost to IG because Splinter didn't really play much the last month, and they stayed very much on form with maximum evasion, PvE race. IG doesn't play that way; they go kill. So same with Hut. That's the 2 teams that Splinter lost to. 2 very heavy player kill teams, right? So who will focus fire, and that got to them, right? Just because they hadn't seen it or practiced it. So it's interesting where the game can change, but it takes time, and all the ships aren't viable. So it's not, I totally see what you're saying. Do you know what I totally see your point, and how do you balance that? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is on how to make it.
Very simply.
Yeah.
Very simple. It's very simple.
What do you think?
The solution is very simple, and it doesn't require much effort. It's just, again, right? So let me explain very clearly. I don't regret any time I spent in Star Wars Squadrons. I absolutely adore that game. I love the moments. It's what started my streaming career. I have very fond memories of all the people, my nemesis / rivals, and my friends, because I wouldn't be able to experience the highs if I didn't have people to fight against, right? So I need those people as much as I need my friends.
Yeah, I mean, we
I
we kind of talked about it too before. Like, this is the first time we'd ever talked because there was like whatever, like a appeared rivalry or something between us that was so silly. Like, we just never really even like talked, even though there was no problem or anything like that. It was just all totally like
It's all smoke and
misunderstood.
mirrors.
Yeah, that's all it
Yeah,
is.
it's all smoke and mirrors. It's all somebody misinterpreting one thing and then something getting said and then
Mhm.
neither party wanting to like sit down and do what we're doing here, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
You don't want to
and it's
just be
just
like,
'cause-
"Hey, I just meant good game." I was, I am the king of salt. I am the king of being salty after a game. Like, I have been so annoyed. Like, I've never gotten GA and I've been grinding it pretty hard. So I get annoyed. I'm like, "Oh, really? Really? You're gonna play your Smurf account right now? You're gonna play. You're not gonna play your GA right now. Really? You're gonna play your Smurf account. You know you're gonna play us right now." Like, I literally live like that.
Yeah.
And I have to be
See,
like,
the
"Yo,
lessons I learned-
I'm a little. I send a message afterwards apologizing because, like, you know what? I don't need to be that way."
I gotta understand too. It's like it's a cultural thing, right? Like for me, growing up in the military, being in the career that I do now, and also I did armed security for a few years. I've been working some rough jobs. So the culture that I come from is very much uh, blatant, blunt, no bullshit truth, but it's also I'm gonna grill you if something's going down. So for example, like times in the military where we're all experiencing something really unfortunate. Um, you know, you'd think someone would come around and like kind of give you a hug and be like, "Hey man, it's gonna be okay." No, no, that's not what happens in the army. Someone comes by, looks at you, goes like, "Pick yourself up, you piece of shit," and then you go like, "Sorry, man," and be like, "Yeah, that's right, okay," and then runs to the next guy, "Hey, you piece of shit, get up." So it's like, it's just he doesn't mean that. We none of us mean that to each other. It's just like it's just it's an unspoken language of we're gonna fight together. I'm gonna give you a hard time, but in the end of the day, it's like we're all kind of in this together, and that's the same way I treat a lot of people. And unfortunately, I'm very stubborn, so I refuse to change that behavior, and it sometimes polarizes people, and I understand that.
Where I'm sorry, I've been trying to say, because this is like where me and Gonk, obviously, me and him are on the Orange Discord. He is like American, and he will call me. He will call me on doing the opposite. Like, you have I think he will say it's very not Canadian to be like, because that's like you're being the blunt way. I'm the like stereotypical Canadian way of being like passive aggressive, almost being like, "Oh no,
that's the worst.
You're falling down there. I guess you need a hand up there, eh, bud?" Or something like that. "Hey, bud, you need a hand up." That's like that's my way of doing it, which is like,
figure it out, bud.
Yeah, figure it out. But like, there's two sides of Canadians, which is very interesting to me. Which I kind of tend to, I'm a little bit more of like I'm gonna be too polite right now, just for the tend of like, I don't want to offend anyone or something. Like, so you kind of like, yeah. So it's good. I love
you're not offended.
Yeah, that's why I love when Gonk calls me out on it. He'd be like, just fucking say it, Time Bomb. Like, you're right. Yeah, you're right.
I'm thinking it.
Yeah,
like, just fucking say it, right? Like,
so I appreciate that. And then you know what? Sometimes that's what it's just like the comes down to that. Sometimes you don't want to say it. So I'm glad you bury the hatchet and all of that stuff.
I never thought there was even a hatchet to be buried. To be honest,
I mean, there never was, but we just we never talked. That's all. So it's there. It's glad it's settled or whatever. But the thing that I find so interesting too is that the whole time that you were this is not what I'm saying. So like I was transitioning from that, like going back to Star Wars Squadron as the game.
Just say it.
Just say it. No, I was actually talking about the PvP side actually, because it is interesting when the one that Randos won was actually when the game was pretty dominated by Empire, but there was a lot of kills still going on. I feel like in that major win.
Which one are we talking? Are we talking about the Cal Major?
Yeah, the one you guys won. Actually, I'm kind of like transitioning over to that one.
Oh yeah, let me try to remember that one. Yeah, TIE Defenders were still really great. There wasn't much of a change between that Cal Cap and this one. I believe the balance changes were identical.
No, they have actually balanced them. They have balanced it out now. The factions. I think Empire was much stronger in that one. I think that one. I think the Empire won a lot of those ones.
Yeah, well, the Empire wins because it's the Empire.
I mean, it is crazy, right? Like the DPS. The DPS output is just the advantage. It always has been. And you're just talking about in a lore sense because you're you sim for the Empire.
Like the Empire. You know what I mean? I like the Empire. And yeah, you can make an argument to say that definitely advantage goes Empire at the time, and it is the way it is.
Mhm.
You know, there's nothing I can do about it. I wish I could. You know, I'm
Mhm.
not a dev. You know, and it's not like New Republic wasn't winning either, right? So it was just not as much.
That was what was
And
so
I get that.
frustrating. And to your point too, how it was like
I
there
mean,
was that
we
point.
won
Yeah.
on Republic.
Oh, that's a
for
good
that
point.
one.
Yeah. So
We
there,
won our last match. Our
Yeah.
winning match, like our game point match, was on NR.
And I was just trying to think of the PvP point of the game, though. Is I think even though Empire was strong, that's just more what I was thinking. There was still more of a PvP element there. Like after that one, it was really that's what I was trying to get at. Is like the player killing has kind of did. If I was doing a graph of it, there was sort of a peak of player killing at that point that just started to really drop off afterwards, right? Like that's really what I was trying to get at, not necessarily the Empire dominance or which one. Yeah,
people realize that the exploitation of the drift pinballing is so much more difficult to hit than like the amount of energy it takes. And when I say energy, the amount of time, weapon energy, objective DPS that you're missing just to take out a player is exponentially more than energy spent doing anything else, right? And that meta started to really become the dominant meta in the game. And to me, I saw two options. I saw, okay, we can get some support for the game, we can make some edits, and we can continue to balance the game and all that stuff. Or two, I leave. Because the state that the game is still in and will continue to be in my opinion, is a different game. Because it's based around gameplay that I don't think was really intended. And even though there are still teams that are playing competitively and enjoying it, I say great. You know what I mean? I really do. Like I really do wish that people continue to play the game, and if that's the game for them, then that's the game for them. But for me personally, I was like, to me, I felt cheated. I felt frustrated because I thought that the developers had basically kind of pulled a fast one on us. They're like, we're going to make you this great game. We're going to make it almost perfect in the sense that it's almost there, and then we're just going to disappear. And that to me is, you might as well not even made it then, because to me that's just unbelievably frustrating. And I guess I think everyone, another step in EA's shenanigans, I guess, right?
Everyone just, all of us love this game, and I have that issue too, because I do enjoy the current state of the game, but there's tons of people that don't get me wrong. I'm the minority there, and I recognize
you enjoy it because you're getting, and this is the truth, right? If you lost every game you walked into, would you like the state of the game?
No, but I've always had like an 80% win percent. My wins and has always been.
But what if you didn't?
Oh yeah,
didn't. You start hating the game real fast. I guarantee it, right? That's just human nature.
I guess, yeah. It's different when you're right.
A certain percentage, and when you're winning, your bias switches. Totally.
Yeah. Oh, you got me. Totally fine. Damn, you checkmated me, Avenger. You checkmated me. Damn it. You're right.
But because I found myself in that spot too, where I thought to myself, like, am I defending this because I'm being successful at it? Because I've been in other avenues where I'm very good at something, but I don't really like it. But because I'm really good at it, I found myself kind of saying, like, it's fine, like, it just needs these things to change. Because I wanted personally, like, selfishly, to keep my advantage, right?
I want to put I get it. I want to put a pin in this for 1 second, because I actually want to address. It's one of the things actually I want to talk about, because you're talking about you're a fan of the Empire, and there was a certain point on when you play the New Republic, where you went from playing, I think, A-Wings, that you had to kind of switch to X-Wing. Do you want to like talk about that at all? How like that kind of happened? Sure. What your thoughts were on, like, because obviously you're playing the Defender tons too. What is your thoughts on the New Republic side of the game as well?
Well, the X-Wing is the best ship in the game, bar none. It's better than, in my opinion, it's better than the TIE Defender. It's better. It's the best ship. Like, it can do OBJ damage like nobody's business. It can still fight. It can still run. It can still tank. It can still bomb. It can literally do everything better than everybody else. In a stand-up 1v1, the X-Wing, I think, has a chance against the TIE Defender. But honestly, who's engaging in a 1v1 more than 5 seconds? or 10 seconds. Like either you get the sucker kill on somebody or you waste your time doing the pinball and nobody's killing anybody. You know what I mean? Like it's just, or the guy isn't skilled enough and, you know, gets suckered into a J hook and then gets blasted. You know,
and that's
like
why, and to your point, that's why there is almost no 1v1 kills. Like it's almost impossible to kill someone 1v1 unless they just like get caught in a rotary from a bomber dumbly, right? And like don't get
it is impossible unless someone makes a really critical mistake, but then you're dead no matter what anyway.
Yeah, it's like not, it's very, you've made a mistake to be in that situation. Yeah, it's like it's on you. It's not, in most games it's on the person to kill you. In this game it's I messed up, so I died. Yeah.
It's a 2-to-1. It takes minimum 2 pilots to engage one guy. And that's, in my opinion, the opposite of what it has to, in my opinion, it should be one guy can kill 2 guys quite easily. So now it's like you've got to really watch the players. You've got to watch what's going on, and you've got to have a solid team that can engage these people, because it used to be with like Namaste when I used to roll with Deathwatch. It's like one of our guys could almost wipe an entire team, and we had a fucking stack of 4 guys that were just killers.
Oh my god,
so we just won every match because people didn't know how the pinballing worked. People were actually just flying essentially how the game intended them to do it.
Yeah.
And once the gunnery got fixed, like, you know, it was bad news bears for them.
I hated playing against you guys so much. Like I have nightmares from Namaste double rockets. Oh my god, I hated it. I didn't play against you as much because you were a little like I played in the early morning when Namaste was up, I guess, before you got on it. But when I played against you, the times I did, it was not fun either. Don't get me wrong. I should mention too, the J hook, actually, something you brought from, something I feel like you kind of brought to this game, definitely popularized it and talked about it a lot. Why don't you talk about I saw an old video from another game about it. What was coming from?
The original J hook came from.
Yeah.
That's the OG J hook, man.
Yeah. So why don't you talk about its history too?
Yeah, well, Star Citizen had a big dogfighting scene. In my opinion, that was getting about as popular as how maybe Squadrons is right now. There were teams being formed. There were tournaments starting to come up. The combat was the highest skill ceiling space combat I've ever played to this day, and still to this day. Those older 1.6 patches were ludicrously fast. Ships were flying. So imagine playing Squadrons, but you're not limited to your vector. You can move in any direction at any time. So I would have 2 joysticks, my left hand on my stick, which would control my strafe, and then my right hand on my nose, and my pedals, my feet would control my acceleration towards and back towards the target. So I can move in independent directions at any point, at any orientation. And this added a level of, in my opinion, depth and skill, especially when you make the combat really fast. That made combat in space against these other space fighters, which looked really cool. I mean, the Hornet looks gorgeous. Something that was truly unique and exciting and skill-based. I mean, one guy could easily take out a team of 10 guys if they didn't know what they were doing. In Squadrons, I'm not sure if I could say the same. But
that is not.
Because it was so high skill ceiling, it was very difficult for players to get involved. So either you were a professional or you didn't play, because you either needed to be a professional to get any kind of results, right? So I understand why they eventually, as time went on, started to lower the skill ceiling. But at that time, it was absolutely wild.
Yeah.
Now, the fundamentals of space combat in Star Citizen are relatively the same. So the J-hook still works, although there are different maneuvers now that maybe are a little better. But essentially, it was you would draw a J in space. You strafe down, then to the left or to the right, and then you strafe up again. So if you were to look at your flight path, it would look like a J, right? And you'd always keep your nose facing your target, so that you just continuously keep doing J hooks, because it shakes off the target acquisition, right? So he's like, oh, he's going down now. Oh shit, now he's going to the right. Oh, back, he's going up now. Oh fuck, now he's going down again. So it's like he's constantly shaking that pip around. So that it's really hard for you to track with your nose and get on target. That was really the method behind the J-hook. And then that's where it was born.
There you
go. Because I found out that style, not that style, but like that pattern, because it's a pattern, right? There's no crossover of gun barrels. I'm not strafing to the right and then strafing to the left, because if I do that, I'm going to go back under your nose again. But with the J hook, I'm going to the left, or so I'm going down, so I'm getting out of your gun, and then I'm going to the right 90 degrees, so now you have to track again, and then I'm going up again. So I'm always getting out of your nose. At no point am I crossing over your nose again.
Mm.
Because if you cross over the nose, you might be able to take a shot and do some damage, and it's better to not get hit at all than to take a shot, right?
Mm-hmm. So, I
that's
forgot
where
it.
the
The one
originally came
thing,
from.
the one thing that we were talking about that I wanted to put a pin in. Now I forgot about it. We were right in it too, and I wanted that. This is the point where I would want to come back to it. We were right into it, talking about the late
How
game.
does that relate to the J hook and stars in Star Wars Squadrons?
Well, we kind of went back to the whole New Republic thing. We talked about how the A-Wing left the X-Wing, or the A-Wing more for the X-Wing just because it was the best ship in the game. They kind of had to. It goes both ways. The game was kind of leading that way, but I think what we were kind of talking about was the way that the game, I think at the point where you had to leave the game, actually, is what was kind of what we were talking about, because, like, you kind of didn't, not had to leave, chose to leave. I guess.
Yeah.
Had to leave. Had to leave.
Yeah, there's a big difference.
When I said had to leave, it's your choice to have to leave. I don't know. Yeah, no, you chose to leave. You chose.
Well, it was a simple decision. It was like, I don't see any support from the developers. They don't patch the game. They don't do anything to it. And that's their choice. I don't agree with it. I think, if you're going to put a game out, at least give it 1 year of support. I mean, for God's sake, if they were to fix the drifting so that your ship inherits the momentum from the previous drift, so stuff starts to fly like actual ships instead of these weird like bing 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 stuff just bouncing all over the place.
Yes.
Just that alone would bring me back, because that would make a huge impact on the state of the game. Like, now it's worth it for you to chase somebody down because you can actually kill them.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's slowly getting there in the game. It's just that the tools are limited, so the variation isn't there. That's what I was going to talk about.
That is a fundamental problem that cannot be fixed unless they get under the hood.
And they're not going to do that, so it's in the hands of, I mean, the Hail Mary hope is the Frostbite stuff that was stolen. Maybe in a few years will show up and they can get under literally get under the hood. But by that point, Squadrons 2 would come out. But in the meantime, sorry, I want to get into Squadrons 2 at the end here, talk about the future of hopefully another game. But the one thing that they're doing now in the game that I just kind of talked about last week that's sort of interesting is that they're trying to work on modifying with the in-game tools a little bit and make a few rule sets to give, exactly what you're saying. It's elusive, leading it sort of with some other people. I shouldn't just say elusive. A group of people are trying to find ways to make it all viable with the tools that they have.
And I would love, honestly, like I say, all power to you.
Yeah.
But don't forget that what you're going to do then is you're going to split the community even more. You're going to you're going to have the competitive people that watch streams, and like there's a community focused around that basically plays a different game with different rule sets because they've adjusted these things. And then you're going to get the regular community that just plays whatever we currently have.
Yeah.
And they're not really going to know what's going on. So
the idea so just to address that, just because the thinking behind it is this is sort of beyond the competitive side. This is like the competitive people kind of working with a bunch of different people to try to find some sort of better balance for, after Cal Cup, SCL is kind of done. Like, there's probably one more season. Well, it's not done, but there's only a few more seasons of stuff, right? Like that we're going to see, right? So yes, it may fracture the community, but the community is going to be kind of one thing sort of at that point too. So that is my fear, but I see I just wanted to address it. Yeah.
Yes. I think we as a Star Wars Squadrons community did beyond the Call of Duty and then some. Like the amount of effort that this community has put into tournaments and organizations and streams and money, to me, is next to a fucking miracle. It's unbelievable the amount of effort and time that all these people have put in. And to me, I felt like it was incredibly disrespectful for them to ignore that and just walk away from the game when they can so easily fix these problems.
I am right there with it. Is mind-blowing to me that like the community was able to put together $35,000 in prize money, but like EA, Disney can't even like promote that stuff. Like they can't even put out a tweet, "Hey, this game we made has a grassroots competitive."
agree.
You know, like
I 100%
it's
agree.
like you
To
know,
me, it's nothing short of a crime.
Mhm.
It's just unreal, you know. So,
Yeah.
but here's what's going to happen in my opinion. Here's what will happen as time moves forward. You'll still have like the game will still have players in it. It'll always have players
Yeah.
in it, right?
Mhm.
You'll have a bunch of people that might have some success with this Frostbite leak. I doubt that
Long
though,
term.
because if
Long
there's any
term.
kind of stuff going on there, they'll find that the cheat code engine will pick you up, so you
Yeah.
got to deal with that too, right?
Mhm.
And it'll just fracture the fan base even more, and it's hard enough finding a match. You know, you queue for 10 minutes for God's sakes sometimes, so it's just the way that it is, right?
Mhm.
The only option at this point, because there won't be a season 2 of SCL, in my opinion, and there won't be a season 2 of Cow Cups, because it's just simply not like it's not worth it for a company to invest where the fans just simply aren't coming anymore, right? The players are there, but you need the fans, right? And the fans have to be invested in the product because there has to be some fun there. And the problem is when the teams are having such a miserable time with some of these problems with the game, it leaks out to the fans, and the fans are like, yeah, fuck this. And it's like, you know, like, because if you're a new pilot and you come into the game and you start to learn, you're like, oh, this is really fun. You get to like the intermediate level, which is where probably the game is at its best, because you don't really know all these exploits yet. And then you start to really look into how the game plays at high level, and you realize, wait a minute, it's a totally different game. And a lot of people are complaining, and there's some problems. You know, it's not going to make you want to watch high skill gameplay stuff, because why would you want to watch a bunch of buggy shit? You know, even the production quality that we've had at CalCup and the Twin Suns was exceptionally high.
Yeah.
You can't get away from like these huge problems with the flight model. Like, I don't care how you split it. When ships basically hyperband, what looks like lag, just bounce all over the place. Like, I'm not sure about you, but I've never seen that in Star Wars. And to me, you know, it's like, that's not exciting to me. It's not fun to play. It's super frustrating.
I get.
So to me, I was like, I'm
yeah.
out.
So I totally get what you're saying, and it is that way. I guess the thing that I like is at least I know what's up, because any game you play, people are just gonna do whatever is the best kind of. They're gonna hard meta it, and it's on the devs to balance those things out. Don't get me wrong. And then it kind of is like an arms race, figuring out what the changes do and what is the best. So at a certain point, I like that everyone just knows everything kind of now. There's not much left. This is what it is. We're gonna play that out for the hopefully the remainder of these seasons, and then maybe go from there and see if you can tweak things and make it better. Because there is a certain like. There's a certain thing, like I'm saying in the game, that PvP is back. I'm telling you, like the Cal Cup final, the way it's chalking up is gonna be super. You're not gonna be able to just be evasive. There's gonna be, the way that it's looking now, players are just going to quite potentially be focused, and it's gonna be these crazy long games. Like there was a game for the SCL final with randos and oh my god, how am I spacing who it was? Cheese, I think, and they were like just so PvP heavy. Like
I know, I was there.
Oh, you were. No. SCL season 2 there. Oh, you were watching it?
Oh, there was a season 2 already.
Yes, there was a season. I thought you meant season 3. Should be a season 3 now. There was a season 2. I just finished Randos Repeated, actually. Off a crazy, they brought this ICT Y-Wings out, like in Forest, and it was, and it went wild. So yeah, you know what I mean? Like right now, the game, there's like limited, you gotta use ICT Y-Wings, you gotta have Ion Dunks, you gotta have a support with either Tractor Beam or like maybe Ion Laser, whatever. You know what I mean? Like there's, you know exactly.
I was the missile guy with the TIE Defender.
Of course, right? Like so,
ghost ride right up to somebody, but you basically only get the kill with the ion missile. It's just silly sometimes, but
yeah, I mean, it's like, or with 3 people. Basically, now it's like, oh, someone's like, I need a peel. It's like, oh, there's 3 people on you. Good luck with that, buddy.
Yeah.
We're gonna do objective. Well, they chase you for about 10 seconds here. Like that's where the say the game is. Yeah.
There's still fun to be had in the game. I'm not saying that. Right? I'm not discrediting that. There's if people like the way the game plays right now, I say go for it, man. Fill your boots. It's just, for me, it's not. You know,
I'm not trying, and
that simple.
I think it's a great point too. There's only,
I was just like, ugh.
There's part of me though that's like wants this game to influence Star Wars Squadrons. Like I want there to be a squadron leader in this new movie that is named Avenger One. You know what I mean? Like that would be amazing. It would be amazing to me if there was a New Republic squad that like Splinter Squadron, go in. If there was a sideline like that, that's what I want. I want to see drifting kind of come
give
into
it to the fans for fan service. I'd be
Yeah,
down for that too,
and they
but-
wouldn't even know it, but it would be really appeasing to us. I guess that kind of stuff would be so cool in the game or in the movie, kind of going
Yeah,
back
it'd be
from the
great,
game.
you know. But don't. What's the likely scenario is we'll have either a Rogue Squadron game
hmm
that will maybe take the lessons from Squadrons and improve on them, which maybe that's what's going on. If that's the case, honestly, to me, Motive would be absolved because I would be like, oh, I understand now. Like they were already working on basically a Squadrons 2. And so, to me, that justifies pulling the support. I would have liked for them to tell us, but as a company, they might not be allowed to tell us, right?
Yeah,
So I
of
get
course.
that, right? But if we don't get a Squadrons 2 and they just have left it like this, and they go off and do other stuff, and then we never get another Star Wars shooter game for like another 10 years, to me, I'll be like, why? Like, you could come back for 6 months and fix all the problems, and you'd get a ton of new players, and you'd have a big growing scene. Like, to me, as looking at it business wise, it makes absolutely no sense why you wouldn't invest a little bit of money.
Just looking at how
into the
EA does business with a ton of their games, like these annual sports releases,
Don't
they
get me started on EA
they do
games.
the bare minimum of putting out the same game each year. It's like, just do that bare minimum for this game. Just fix the slight problems, put out a new game. Do the $20 update. I know. Do those changes and make a $20 battle pass for 6 months.
Yeah,
everyone would come back. The amount of people, the 35,000 people who started on Steam, I guarantee 10,000 of those people would come back just for another go at an improved version of it or whatever, right? Like,
yeah, but this game deserves a lot more people than that.
it does.
That's just my opinion, right? And I mean, the game, again, right? All they would really need to fix is the drift issues with the chaining drifts together and having it not inherent velocity. Like, that's something they have to code in. That's something with the flight model that they have to do, but it needs to be done. It's just that simple. Like,
there's a lot of
the
zero throttle.
might not be
Yeah,
for
zero
the game to
throttle. All that
survive into
stuff,
the
sure.
next few years. It might be, and this makes sense to me, that they almost want it to be dead in the water so that when they come out with Squadrons 2, there's really no reason to play the original.
So I think it goes, from what I'm seeing right now, and the fact that EA lost the exclusive license. Obviously, they knew that was happening earlier.
They didn't lose it.
Well,
it expired.
It expired.
Now,
they didn't get it.
In 2022 or 23, I think when it's finished, their 10-year contract is finished, they'll be sitting with 5 games over 10 years, something ridiculously low. So,
it's just this
it's been a long decade.
It's incompetence with the best video game IP license you could possibly dream to have.
They had the golden goose. They strangled the golden goose in front of us. Is what happened.
I don't know.
About to see it.
And the fact that they just released that there is no Star Wars game at EA Play is pretty disheartening. You would hope for something beyond Squadrons, just anything. Yeah, they just released this within the last week. Apparently, there's no new at EA Play at the end of the month here in a week or so.
Oh, I don't follow anything EA.
It's just dumb. They have
I don't really care about that.
I mean, you honestly, what am I doing? Wasting my time trying to keep up with it, right? It's because I had hoped there would be some Star Wars news because I do Star Wars YouTube and stuff. That's kind of what I'm into here now. So I was excited for something
Star
new.
Wars until Christmas of this year, and then 2022 is
They're not even announcing anything though. It's crazy. They should why?
There's nothing going on.
Yeah.
Because everything that is going on is still in production.
Yeah, but
it's just that simple.
Mm-hmm. I think you're right because the fact that they can't announce anything is think about how far off things must be if they can't even announce that they're working on anything.
Well, no, that's just the standard procedure of the industry now.
Mm-hmm. But it just shows
you can't even announce the game until it's released almost at this point. You'll lose your job if you leak something.
They can't announce that they're going to release a game that isn't even finished yet. Come on.
I don't know why it's like that.
When did we allow this to happen? That they think they can just release games that are nowhere near done. Why release it?
They're trying to avoid what happened to The Last of Us 2. That's what they're trying to avoid. They're trying to avoid information getting out and then having something get boycotted. Like, do you know about the Last of Us 2?
Yeah, I remember this
controversy,
stuff
right?
too. Yeah, like just on like
They lost a
tangentially
lot of
sort
money.
of. Yeah,
A lot of people refunded. Like, they lost more money than they are willing to admit.
yeah. I mean, and
it
when
was
you're
because of an NDA leak.
And see, it's just
So
like
as a company, you just instill you say, okay, that's it. No one talks about it. You talk about it, you lose your job. Period.
well, what's the
Because
other
they
end
want-
though too? Like Cyberpunk trying to like talk about it for about 8 years before it comes out, creating those problems too, and then it comes out and it
is Star Citizen, where they tell you everything, and everyone complains.
So actually, we're kind of wrapping up now. Since you, what right now is going on with Avenger One, streaming wise and everything? What's the future looking like for you here?
My future is very bright. I'm getting numbers now back on stream that I used to get back when I was playing Squadrons. But the thing with Squadrons is I had trouble getting above a certain number because the audience just wasn't there yet.
I know,
what I mean?
yeah,
And
completely.
unfortunately, with the state of the game, I don't see that the audience is going to grow. I think the audience will stay dedicated, absolutely, right? But for me, and also for my own mental health, I just want to play a different game, right?
Sure.
So, Star Citizen to me has always been my love. It's been my passion. I stopped denying it. It's just the truth, right? Like I do really love the game. Yes, it's got problems. Yes, it's alpha. Yes, it's been 12 years. However, the game that I'm currently playing right now, in my opinion, is some of the most fun I've ever had playing a space shooter game. And the nice thing about Star Citizen is it's always developing permanently, constantly, forever. And that might be kind of a shitty situation, but at the same time, like,
coming from Squadrons, that must sound pretty good, actually.
Yeah, there was always stuff getting put in the game. There was always new ships. There was always new planets. I mean, they just added Orson, which is a giant cloud city, and they have this new weather tech where it's if you haven't seen it, it's absolutely gorgeous. It's really cool. Come by the stream and see it for yourself, and then enjoy the dogfighting. I mean, I'm a space dogfighter. I thought maybe I should transition to Tarkov because I thought it's got a big fan base. I'm a tactical guy. I've experienced combat. I like guns. I like combat. But the big thing with Tarkov is there's so many hackers that I just can't be bothered.
Yeah.
It's just so ridiculous.
I hate
And
that.
my true love is space flight. It's flying a space fighter in a squadron, having a bunch of fun with my friends. And Star Citizen gives me that, and it does it in a beautiful way. The game looks incredible. The ships look incredible. The combat is fun. It's getting better. It's always adapting. We have good conversations. Like, to me, it's everything I've wanted in a game, and that's really what it is, right? We got to keep each other honest. If shit starts going sideways, we got to start talking about it. I'm not a shill for any stretch of the means. I mean, I'm definitely a pariah in the community as well, just like I think I was for Squadrons, because I speak my mind.
Hey, that's the best way to be, though. Honestly, it's something I'm trying to do even more than ever before now these days.
Well, you got to follow your own truth, man.
Right.
Like, you have to,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's just, it's gonna, if you want an adventure in life, man, tell the truth.
It's good advice. I appreciate it, man. Having you on this podcast has been awesome, man. Really, really cool to get to know you. Man, thank you so much for coming on. Everyone, let everyone know where they can follow you on the Twitch and anywhere else.
Yeah, just Avenger One __. So it's 2 underscores between the Avenger One on Twitch, and you can just find me there. All my socials are linked there as well, right? So,
and I'll have a link below in the description, man. Thank you again for being on this episode, buddy.
I really enjoyed it, man. Maybe we'll do it again.
Yeah, definitely. All right, I'll catch you later, and thanks everyone for listening to the Star Wars Squadron podcast.
517 to scanner control. 517 to scanner control.